I had a bit of a problem with this panel, okay? Because it's a cut down box off a 110, it didn't line up right. It was a bit like that. So what I did was, I got my old, see if you can see it outside. I got the old forklift. I put a piece of wood on the front, backed it up to the front bumper, put a bloody great ratchet strap all the way around, and put that up to the bumper and just pulled it. And it just went absolutely perfect. So don't worry if you've got to bend things. Don't worry about that at all. In fact, while I'm here, I'll tell you, because we're in a good situation to show you with this video. I mentioned before about a galvanized bulkhead. We had no end of troubles with them. You know, they say, oh yes, we put them in a frame and galvanize them, but they get too hot and they twist. I've never seen a straight one yet. What we had, our problem was, like if we were looking at this, it was bent like a banana. So we couldn't get the door gaps right. We could get one side right, but we couldn't get the other side right. And then it was starting to flex the wings. And what happened was, the wing at the front was tilted up. Even though we had the door gap right at the bottom, we couldn't get enough adjustment on the bracket at the bottom, even with the shims out. So we realised the bulkhead was twisted. So what we did was this, kind of crude, but it worked. We got an old door hinge, and we burnt a hole in here, a really old one, it's no good. Flipped it upside down, bolted it on, and then we put a chain round the mast of the forklift. Same method, we put the forklift to the bumper. You could use anything really, next door's fence or something like that. And then with a porta power, we just pulled both sides at the same time. So it was in a loop chain, and we just pulled it forward, and we tweaked it. It just went, and then all of a sudden we let it off. Oh, we have to do a little bit more. Did it again, perfect. We never had a problem with it after that. Yeah, so I'm always suspicious of galvanised stuff, and whilst we're on about galvanised bulkheads, this has turned out to be a life story, isn't it? This panel here, see here, behind your heater duct or your bottom dash, that was twisted to all in sundry. You know, it would warped really bad, and we had a hell of a time trying to pull the heater box on, because they're only held in by well, if you're doing a Land Rover, you probably know this already, but let's zoom in a bit. You see under here, there's some captive nuts in plastic. Now, trying to pull a rigid heater box against these plastic fixings was really, really difficult, because the heater box was rigid, but the bulkhead was also rigid but twisted. So we had a hell of a job with nuts and bolts trying to pull all the things together. And the thing was, we had no option. We couldn't get away with it. So for me, no for galvanising. I'm sorry, it doesn't cut the mustard. Might seem a good idea, but whilst God, I might as well do this aligning doors up and galvanising. Let's look at something very important. This bit here. I might do this video as a separate video. This bit, this top corner, and this area here on Land Rovers always gets rusty. The reason is it's subject to heat and condensation, all right? And they condensate inside. Now, it's not a really big problem, but they're made up of laminated bits of metal. They're all different shapes inside here. One of these days, when we get an old bulkhead, I'm going to cut one in half, and you can have a look down inside, and you'll see there's about 3 or 4 different pieces of lamination in there. Now, you can't sandblast that out. You can't get between the laminates. And even though you put the bulkhead into an acid dip, you cannot get that completely acid, like the acid won't strip out the rust. To make life a little bit more interesting, I'm not sure how Land Rover used to paint these. The frames they used to dip paint, I'm almost sure they used to dip paint them, but I think on the later Land Rovers they're done with an electrolytic cathode spray gun, so this is charged positive or negative and the gun's charged, well, positive and negative, and the paint will eventually start to get inside. Now, one word, I've mentioned this before to you about galvanizing, especially chassis. You cannot get the paint, if there's paint inside, you cannot get it out with acid. With the hydrochloric acid that they put in the galvanizing bath, it won't work. So what you end up doing is, you won't really get a good coating of zinc inside. It doesn't work. It really doesn't work. So it looks all nice and galvanized from the outside, but really the problem's on the inside, and in a few years' time it will manifest itself into a lot of rust. What do I do here? Well, before I fit the bulkheads, I turn them upside down and I fit them, I actually pour them full of a product like Dynatrol or wax oil or something like that. I'm not a great fan of wax oil, but something that penetrates, and I think the Dynatrol in Europe's really good. But I leave it upside down and I leave it to soak and I leave it all to come out. It's a real messy business. But once it's in, a regular seasonal touch-up is quite easy, because all you do is take off one of the bolts out the hinges, shove your probe up there, missus, shove your probe up, and then squirt all inside here. And these will last a long time. Now, for the base of the bulkheads, I usually put a plastic coating on, like a stone chip coating, and that usually, lasts an awful long time. That is the only instance where galvanizing would be nice. It would be nice if you could just dip the bottom half, because that's easy access to get all the paint off. But be warned again, listen, this bottom panel of your footwell, down here, yeah, I think I will split this up because it's turning into be a saga. This plate here, on your footwell plate, is actually double skinned. There's a rib piece on the outside and a flat piece on the inside. And if you've been playing around with Land Rovers, you'll know they're notorious for getting rust in and corroding. When you go to the galvanizers, I bet you £1 to a penny, they will not be able to get the rust out from inside that cavity. So therefore, you've got something nice and galvanized, and if you don't get any rust proofing in, it will rust even quicker. But you won't be able to see it because the galvanizing is like holding it together. And I have seen them that's been galvanized a few years ago, and then they look about paper thin. So that's just a few notes, because it's springtime coming up and everybody's building the Land Rovers up, but they're all building them up wrong. I hope that really helps. So today I'm just going to get on doing some painting. I'm going to do these panels on the sides, give these a quick paint up. I'm going to try and sort out the doors. Mr. FedEx was nice enough to lose my package with my wiring harnessing and the bottom hinge, which I needed to complete this project. But of course, once I've got my bar in here, I know that that door is going to fit. I can guarantee it. So, again, if you like that, thumbs up, like, and pass it on. I keep saying this, pass it on to your friends, because your other guys and your other buddies in your Land Rover world are going to like this. Talk to you later.